We are up to Daf Lamed Vav and Aleph Masechta Sotah, and we're continuing discussing the crossing of the Yarden into Eretz Yisrael. So the top line of the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Boy, come and see. The number of miracles, a myriad of miracles that occurred in the day. First of all, which they were talking about, over Yisrael's Yarden when they crossed the Yarden. When they made the beeline to Hagrizim and Har Evel, as we discussed before. Number one, yes, in Meshishi Mil. It was longer, the distance is greater than 60 mil and did it all one day. The ain't called Ber Yechayla Lamed with name, and nobody can withstand the Yidden because they intimidate everyone. Number three, the Chaloim with name. Anybody did try to stand up to them, Miyat Nitras, immediately you had to defecate them. It says in the pasuk, "It's a mosi ashal v'necha." My fear, I'll stand before you. V'hamayisi is kol and I will put to death all the people. I should tell him that will approach you from them. Layman, it says, and what's going to happen? Tipul aleim a mosa v'pachad, that I will make fall on them fear, trepidation. Ad yavar amcha Hashem, until Hashem will help you cross into Yisrael, which is Zubi Rishayna, the first coming. And Ad Yavar Amzu Kanis, until you'll cross again, which is Biyashni, the second, which is with Ezra when they went to Yisrael after the Churban by Rishon. From here you can conclude really the should have the same kind of nisim that happened when they entered Yisrael with Yeshua should have happened when they entered Yisrael with Ezra. Ezra wasn't very lucky. First of all, he was deserving that the Torah should be given to him like Moshe Rabbeinu. It didn't happen. And deserving that miracles happened against Israel, and that didn't happen. Not only didn't happen, nobody wanted to go with him to Israel. He went in a very sparse community. Very few people went with him. With Ezra? With Ezra. Very few. They were very happy. Yeah, exactly. Oh, very good. They were all very settled in bubble, and they, why go up there? And afterwards, then they brought the stones, the ones by the wilderness by Sadu, but they plastic, the coastal land called They wrote entire certain languages. It says not also was a miracle, but they were able to write on these stones the entire Torah, 70 languages. Even if you learn that it was not the entire Torah, only parts of it, still it's a miracle. They did it all in one day. It says a person they can buy it, hate it. You should explain the Torah well, which means in all languages. And the helu eilos v'shlamim. They brought kabbanis, the achlu, the shasu, they ate and they drank. The samcha, they rejoiced, ubarchu, and they blessed vikiloi. Now they have a problem with the word vikiloi. Which klala come in? So vikiloi, they want to say vikiloi, is hagrizim harevel. Take it literally, because they're all asking about vikiloi. Actually, the real question is a baruch. Of course, they benched. Well, why wouldn't they bench? You have to say birchas hamazon is mahatorah. What's the chiddush that they benched? But this will be the first time that they eventually, because there's a whole shock with Taya, but in the midbar that they really bench because all the 80th a month. And if you ate the month, what bracha do you make before? And do you make a bracha afterwards? Because it's all, miracle food, not natural food. So perhaps this is the first time that they benched Mehat Torah. The first day they went to Yisrael, even though they still had some money left over, they were also eating from food in Yisrael. But that really can't be because we know that it was Chadash, and we actually have a discussion in Kedushin of Lamach Hester about how they were able to eat, because they had the man, and they were not able to eat until the second day of Pesach, when there was no longer any more Chodesh. Then Pesach wants to know, but matzah, the mitzvah matzah should put away, because you already need some Chodesh, and that kind of stuff. So, if there was a problem with benching in the midbar, there's a problem with benching the first week in Eretz Yisrael as well. So, Baruch Hu would then mean just they're expressing their extra gratitude, or this time they actually meant it. When they said it, thank you for giving us Eretz Yisrael and all that. Now they finally had it. It's within reach. Prior to that, it was all theoretical. They were near there, but they never really had it yet. So Baruch means it's a different kind of kavanah, a different kind of bracha. But we the kol coming. So the kiddush can either mean that it was the klol of Har Evel Hagrizim, or they just delete it. The kiflu is avadi, they remove the plaster from the stones. That's what most people explain. And then you just have to wonder, then what was the point of the plaster in the first place if they peeled it off afterwards? I told you yesterday, we wanted the goyim to put in an effort into recording the Torahs, and maybe they put an effort in, they would actually study it. It'll give them some value. I remember somebody in Breslau used to come to 770, come everywhere and give out their svarim. So they went to the Rebbe to give a sefer, and the Rebbe gave him what it was then a quarter or something, and he said, no, it's for free. And the Rebbe said, you give something for free, it has no value. Things have a cost, and suddenly people associate value to it. So it doesn't matter what the cost is; it can be nominal. It has some value. Uvo v'lonu b'Gilgal, and then another ness is they came back to Gilgal. So they traveled. If you follow, may have machlekes if it was next to the yard or not next yard, but if you follow it was 60 kilometers away, they went both ways in one day. Nema, he said the pasuk. You should place them at the place where you're residing. And we said then, every place where you reside, that night. It says, these 12 stones that you took. So so we see from that what? All these great miracles occurred in that day. Then further, there's a wasp or a bee, which was used as a weapon, did not cross with them into Eretz Yisrael. They were like, didn't says clearly, says clearly, I will send in the Chumash. Said, I will send the bee in front of you by Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeah, in the midbar, it was there to protect them, but it stopped right there, the border. The Zorka Behenmada Vesimta name. It was able to penetrate, able to have some influence in Israel. It cast some of its venom, and it was able to blind their eyes in Israel. Above the Sirastal and cause them also to become sterile below. Shnema, as it says in Pasuk, I destroyed the mighty name before them. Asher Kigeva doesn't have a tall like cedar trees, and Gavad is for the word the Chassaduka and again there was strong like loinim, other kinds of trees. The Ashmi Piryay Mimal, and I destroyed their fruits above the Shirashim Atach, the roots below, their eyes and the ability to procreate. So even though it didn't enter into Israel, but it had an influence on Israel. However, the Papa says state cities. However, there were two different. The one that Moshe Rabbeinu stopped in the Midbar, and Yeshua had his own. The Moshe Yeshua. So what was the big deal then? Unless the tzira of Yeshua was less menacing or threatening than the tzira of Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, Shisha Shvatim Olosh Hagrizim, there were 6 Shvatim Asun Hagrizim and 6 Shvatim Asun Harebo. And the Pasuk says, it says that was standing, the Kohen Levim was standing down the bottom, some of the Levim were there, were standing at the bottom facing the people there. And it says half was in Hagrizim and the other half facing Harebo. And the side of Abel. What do you mean the hachetz? Like the with an article, hey, the. What do you mean by that? So the Gemara by saying ha, it sounds like there's something that's unique. That 6 that we learned about somewhere else, same division of the Shvatim took place here. Where did we have a division of Shvatim elsewhere? The Kohen wore the Avnei Ephod on his shoulder, and the shoulder he also had names Petucha Chesim there, and those names were divided in exactly the same way they were divided by Hagiz and Hareva. Rachel asked a question. That's what Kahana said. He asked a question of Raisa, which seems to be no, that the names they were different. Like Seva, we had 2 precious stones on his shoulders on both sides. Some and the names of 12 shots were there. Shisha 11, 6 on one stone, 6 on another stone. As it says in Pasuk, Shisha Mishmaisam ala Evena Echad, those 6 of their names are on one stone. And the Pasuk concludes, Kid Turl Doisam, according to their birth. Now, what do you mean Kid Turl does according to their birth? So he taich, and it says that regarding the second stone, ala Evan Hasheni is Kid Turl Doisam. So he says, Sheni is Kid Turl Doisam. That the second stone, the number, the Shvatim, the order, the sequence of the Shvatim names, they were precisely the order of their birth. But not the first one. Not the first one. In other words, in the first one, instead of saying Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, the first one, Yehuda, became the first name, and then Reuben, Shimon, the order. So the second one was Mamish, the order, the way they were born. God, Ashi, Yisachar, Zvulun, and so on. But in the first one, it didn't start with Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, but rather it started with Yehuda, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Dan Naphtali. So it wasn't in order. So only the second stone was in order, not the first. Now, if you follow this, has nothing to do with Harev and Hagrizim. Harev and Hagrizim were the stronger ones and the weaker ones. Nothing to do with the order of their birth. So it's a question of Kana from right here from the Tanakhama. The next Yehuda Muktim. Yehuda comes first. The Chamishim Oisis Hoyvim. We'll talk about later. There were 50 letters of the Shvatim. The combination of all the Shvatim on each side was 50 per side. Each one had 25. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. That's the opinion of Tanakhama. Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel says, not the way they were set up in Chumash and the Bamidbar. But that's not how they were done in Avnei Eifert. Interesting, the Gemara has different names for our Chamashim. Okay, we know that Pekudim is numbers, that's Bamidbar, sometimes called Pekudim, but they had no name for Shmais. So he called it Chumasheni, the second book of Moses. No Exodus and nothing else. So the Chumasheni, the second Chumash, they're counted right in the beginning in Me'ela Shmais, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehudi, Issachar, Zebulun, so on. That's Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, like Bnei Leah, and then it counts the other ones. That is how they were split. So not by birth, but the way it was counted in the beginning of Chumash Shmais, Leah's children and the other children. Keita, Bnei Leah, the first stone had all the Leah's children, all 6 children. And the second stone had Bnei Rachel and the Zup and Bilhah, but over there it wasn't in the woman by woman. Rachel, Yosef, and Yamin. We had Binyamin number 1 and Yosef at the end. So Rachel was sort of straddled both sides, and then sandwiched in between was the children of Bilhah and Zilpah. Bnei Rachel, Echem Mekan, Echem Mekan. The children of Rachel, one on one side, one on the other side. Bnei Shvachas, Be'emtza, and then the children of Shvachas were right in the middle. So why the pasuk say that Evan Hashem is Kitodosim according to the birth, the way we're learning that has nothing to do with the birth, it has to do with their mothers. And even that is not exactly correct because the Rachel children were split. Kitodosim means the way the names they were attributed to when they were born, not what they had, what they received later on. Not like Moshe. Moshe said Moshe did not say Reuven, he said Reuven. Shimon Shimoni. Moshe called it Shimoni, Ruvaini. That's not how we call it. Adon v'lei Adoni Godolei Hagodi. So according to the second opinion, it's definitely not according to their birth. Not do with Harev and Hagrizim. It has to do with the mothers. So the question of Kana. Of Kana is one who said that the way the names were divided on the stones were the way they were divided in Harev and Hagrizim. So the mother. If you're a repeater of Kana. No, if you're a repeater of Kana, the question goes back. What do you mean the other half? What's the? As if to say this half that we all know about. What does it mean? Says the Gemara, that Hagrizim, the number of people of people standing on Har Gerizim was greater. The bracha was greater than Har Evel where the kol was. They shall Levi lamata because Levi, who was really on Har Gerizim, part of the Shevet was on the bottom. So on the contrary, that explains why there would be less, not why there would be more. On the contrary, I don't know if I ever told you this. The source of the word adrabah. What does adrabah mean on the contrary? So it says in one of the Rishonim, Rabba, the Gemara says was Iker was so sharp, so smart. Saying, Rabba, would Rabba come up with such a svara? Of course he wouldn't. And quite the opposite. So that's what he's saying. This is Rabba. Because Levi was on the bottom, on the contrary, we less and more. Even though Levi on the bottom, since Yosef was together with them on Har Gerizim, their numbers were amplified. It says, Yosef had large numbers because Yosef said to Shulamer. They said the following: why did you give me only one portion and one area section? And I'm such a large group of people. If you are such a large group of people, interesting how he says if you are. Yeshua was a member of Ephraim, and Yeshua would know exactly. But I'm saying if it bothers you that you're an Amrav and you want a greater chelik of Eretz Yisrael, He's Ali Lecho, how you then go to the forest. Where do you go to the forest? Amalan, he said to them, he said, if you're such a large group, I would worry about something else. About Ein Horish, like Tisha Ein Horish, like Yaakov, we sent his Shvatim different gates. It shouldn't be Ein Horish. People who actually, don't work together as a family, have a large family because of Ein Horish. So he's saying, guys, if you attack a blessed to have so many children, worry about Ein Horish. But what's the point over this? That they were in Hagrizim, that's why the number of Hagrizim was greater than Haribah. Taisa brings a Gemara that says says that Har Abel had more people than Hagrizim. But anyway, you shouldn't have an Ein Hora. Omer Leah said, "Don't worry." Now, this is interesting again. You should have known this. You should have known this because he himself was a member of. Even if he didn't know whatever, he himself was from the tribe. Why wouldn't he have known this? Or you wanted to tease it out of them that they should remember this. We don't have Ein Hora. See, that we have Chain, Yosef, and we're Chain, and then how far is the Chain, the charm of Yosef go? The eye, he's above eyes. Above the eye, that the eye cannot give Ein Hora. And they should multiply. In the land, there should be fish in the land. What's the idea of being fish on the land? Just like fish in the water. Water covers them. And the eye does not in any way cost Ein Hora. Eye because they don't see it, they don't notice it, or because they can't. Even if they would notice it, because they're in the inside the yam, you have no shlita standing on land over those in the yam. Also, there also is no Ein Hora. But if it's the first shot, then you have to still be slightly discreet. In fact, the clay yoker in Pasha Devorim, beautiful clay yoker, on the pasuk, Pnu Lechem Tzafayna, and Shisha is go north. So the clay yoker says, but Moshe Rabbeinu is advising the Yidden. Tzafan by the Seder means to be discreet, to hide your afikaim. Pnu Lechem Tzafayna. He says, no matter how successful you are, begashmius, don't lead an ostentatious life, because all you do is you raise the ire of those that don't have. And he then gives a whole commentary that most of the anti-Semitism that existed throughout the ages is we brought upon ourselves because we don't know how to be discreet. And and we have to live this lavish life. As soon as you afford something, you go buy twice as much of that. And he says that Moshe Rabbeinu is pleading them, learn how to be discreet. So Ein Hora won't have to affect you. Talking about it further, let's go back to the Bryce. The Bryce said, 50, 25 on each side. On the other side, it was only 24, because Binyamin is written in the Torah always without the second Yud. These Beis Nun, Yud, Mem Nun, they'll only have 24. Yosef had an extra name. Remember, it says, Eidus be Yosef. It says in the Pasuk that he gave Eidus to Yehosef, but he says that Yehosef by adding an extra letter to Yosef's name, the hey, that's how you get 25. And this is an Eidus that somebody placed on him when he took us out of Mitzrayim, when we left Mitzrayim. So that's the extra letter. We just said before, the names that were given at time of birth. And now you tell me when it came to Yosef, suddenly we're using the name that was not given to him at time of birth. It was given to him when we left Mitzrayim. It's Eisai. Hello, you're right. Generally, Binyamin is written without minus the second Yud. But here on the stones, the second Yud was there. Because here it says, but Aviv and his father, Karolei Binyamin. Because he was born, he was actually called Binyamin with a full Yud. Everywhere else is without a full Yud. And here he had a full Yud. And that's how it was written on the stone. So the Gemara Yosef Shekidah Shem Shemaim says Yosef that was given extra hay, so he has 3 letters out of that Abish's full name because he was Mekadosh Shem Shemaim with the wife of Potiphar. Nobody was aware of it discreetly. Yehuda Kiddush Shemaim before Hesya. Yehuda is Mekadosh Shemaim openly. He has the full name of Abishah in Yehuda. Now the Gemara that we're going to learn right now, I don't understand. Based on the Gemara we learned, we had the exact same Gemara before, but the Gemara is very different. Let's start with Yosef. Yosef Mahi, what exactly happened? It says it happened on that day. And Yosef, Yosef went home to do his malach. The wife of stayed behind, and Yosef came in. They both intended to do an Aveda. It says he came to the house of malach. So Rabbi Shmuel, the same thing Rabbi Yechon said is actually an argument to Rabbi Shmuel. Chadam alasam lachtam, he came to do his accounting, and Chadam alasam tzracham nichne is like Rabbi Yechon, and he came in to commit an aveda with her. The Enish man there's nobody home. They all went to their church. If Shabbai go to Kibbutz Rosh but he have to be nobody there. So Rabbi Shmuel that day was their holiday, and the whole they all went to their churches. And she her excuse was, I'm ill. Amra, she said, this is the best day. Nobody's home. But to say the big dilemma, and she grabbed a hold of his bacon, saying, stay here with me. And so what? How did Yesha resist, especially if, according to Rabbi Yechanan and Rav, that he intended to according to one of them intended to have an event with her? How did he resist it? He's that moment, boss at the Yochni became an image of his father. Rashi brings down Chumash. He saw his father outside of the window, not inside the house, because it says Ein Ishi my babayis. So we darshan. There was nobody else in the house, but there was somebody outside the house. So it was Yaakov looking through the window. This is how Yaakov brought him back into line. In the future, they're going to have the names of all the shvatim on the stones. And you're supposed to be there. You want me to erase your name there? Could you bring, it's an ill-reputed entire family? The tikra, and they'll call you Roya Zainis, the friend of harlots. The Roya Zainis, those are friends of harlots. You even home. They will lose their fortune, and what's their value? Your name won't be there on that stone. As soon as you hear that, you realize what he's doing. Tosha case and Kash. So Kash is a bow, and he returned it from his strength. In other words, it's a euphemism that he sort of withdrew from his from the lust. That his kesher went back to normal. But how do you do that? It says the pasuk in that very pasuk, which says you spread out by your face of the Zions and change to tzaddik by your two. He spread out his hands. What do you mean? No, he extended his hands in the ground. The yotza shichazera bein tzipani yodav, and the shichazera came out of his fingers. Either if it was literally, not literally, but the idea is that it was painful to do a push-up there on his thumbs, on his fingers, and because it's painful, he lost his interest and became subdued. Midday, Abba Yaakov is all the same person from the strength of Yaakov. Who caused him? Who and whose chus the name of Yosef remained on the Avnei Ephod because of his father, the strong Yaakov. And that's why he became a shepherd of the stone of Yisrael. That's why his name is mentioned on the stone as one of the shepherds, because of the image of his father. And we know that Yosef also became a Roy Yisrael, as we say that the Roy Yisrael has that the people followed like the sheep of Yosef. So we are like the sheep of Yosef. How do you learn that? In fact, Yosef deserved to have 12 Shvatim descend from him, just like Yaakov. It said, Yaakov Yosef. Whatever happened to Yaakov should have happened to Yosef. And only because of this incident that the Shich Vazera went out of his fingers, and therefore he lost that score. Nevertheless, Binyamin had lots of children. No, but Yosef had 2 children, Menashe and Ephraim. He should have had 12, so he was down by 10. Binyamin had 10 children, so he made up the loss of what Yosef missed out. The Kula Niklash Man, all these 10 children are actually associated with Yosef Shnema. It says in Pasuk, who Bnei Binyamin, the children of Yamin, was Bola, Vaveche, Eshkael, and we're going to explain each one how it associates with the Yosef. Bella Shanila Numis. He's describing Yosef. He got swallowed up among the nations. Ubechem Chalima, he was the oldest. And then the Eshbael Sheshavu, they kidnapped him. Geda Shagor Baksanyos, he lived for a while, and all of these, little Ksanyos who's traveling down to Mitzrayim. The Naaman Shenoyim B'Yosef, so sweet. Achi V'Roish, Achi was my brother, V'Roish, and he's my head. I looked up to him all the time. Mupim V'Chupim, Uleira B'Chupasi, V'Ani Loira Isi B'Chupasai. He saw my chuppah, and I did not see his chuppah. Now the Gemara explain what Mupim is. So Rashi says that he brings from Mupim is mepi, that he spoke just like my father Yaakov, that he knew the entire Torah, just like Yaakov knew from Shem Ve'Eber the entire Torah in 14 years. Yosef knew the entire Torah. Why doesn't the Gemara explain what Mupim is? And who later on, how sad it was. I never saw him get married. He didn't see my marriage. And then it says, unfortunately, he had to go down and stand among the nations. You get Amli Vedet, Shapon of them Levedet. His face like a rose, he was always full of life. Nobody should lift the hand above you. All the stargazers said, his value with 20 silver pieces, he'll become the viceroy and he'll rule over us. I see that he has in him the wisdom, all the features, the criteria that you need to have to be a king. You should know 70 languages. That was a criteria. In fact, that's why we're going to Sanhedrin. That in Sanhedrin, you have to have 3 people who know the 70 languages. Gabriel came along. Gabriel Malgam came and tried to teach us 70 languages. This is what we learned before. That Gabriel knows Aramis. Yeshu had a mental block. Like some people can be very smart, but when it comes to languages, they're not very good. He gave an additional name, the Lamed, and he learned it. Interesting. Before we learned that the additional name, he received that extra hay was as a reward for what he did. And here it's another reward. Here it was a long time before he already had the extra hay, way before the story of the wife of Betifera, in order to be hired in the first place, in order that he should become the viceroy. Maybe it happened. Sorry, it happened after. But nevertheless, another whole reason. As Gabriel, so obviously argue the previous Gemara. What I was going to say before to you is here we say, we can get to you. And the next day, and then he learned automatically, and every time Pari started a conversation, he was able to respond. When Yosef initiated a conversation on his Kaddish, Pari was lost. Obviously, Pari was a very intelligent person as well if he spoke 70 languages. Teach me Lashon Kaddish. He tried, but he just couldn't get through his head. He swear to me that you won't reveal to anybody my weakness. You have one up over me. He swore. Later on, had a conversation. My father just made me swear to take him to Mitzrayim. Go ahead and reconsider and go and annul it. Okay. In that case, I'm going to annul this true I made to you, and I'll tell everybody I'm smarter than you. The Pari didn't really want Yaakov to leave. He wanted to turn Yaakov into an idol. The only reason why I'm allowing you is because you made the shvur. Now, what was the great thing about Yehuda? We'll continue tomorrow.